an entirely virtual museum.
What?
Oh, so every program that I do and am in charge of, I now have to have virtual by August. I was like,
Holy,
that's not happening.
Linda, I am glad you're here then.
August is at like spitting distance from here.
I was like, I'm going to go to my training. We'll talk later.
Kathy, this is the OBS meeting. This is OBS and then some. So this is all of the, this is going to work under the assumption that all of you know something about streaming and how things like that work. Essentially, if you can run a Zoom room and not have it collapse in on itself, that's you're at a high enough level for what we're going to talk about today.
Can you just clarify before you begin, Mike, on
Yes.
Do the kids need to be logged in to OBS, or are you streaming to a YouTube and then they're watching this, or are they watching you live?
You with OBS in particular, this open broadcaster software, you have the choice to stream to anything or to record a video. So that's where the online content creation comes in, is that you could use the software to do all of the fun production that you do for a show, but then simply record it out and upload it or send it as you see fit.
So would you describe this as screencasting on steroids?
And then some, yes. Because what we're able to do with software like OBS is all of the screen sharing that you can do in Zoom, all of the annotations that you might be able to do, and then all of the production that you might see in like, even like the biggest planetariums. They're using OBS all the time. So what we're essentially going to go over today is a little bit less about how to use it, because that's something that we can very, very easily kind of work into either another OBS session the way we did, I think maybe like a month ago for Spitz. This is more of like, these are the things we can do. This is what we would, if you want to move past sort of the Zoom environment, that's what we're going to try to focus on today. So, yeah. So if you like online content, but you really don't want to deal too much with Zoom anymore, then once you're past Zoom, things start to get all crazy and amazing. So what I'm going to do first is I realize I need my green screen for this one to show you some fun stuff. So green screens are great. You can go from a professional green screen to green poster board that you put behind you, as long as it's a consistent color that the computer can pick up. The reason that most of the background screens are green is because very, very few people wear vibrant green outfits. That's just not usually a color. So while you can have a blue screen, you'll notice that my shirt and the blue screen are very, very similar to one another. So that would not work out great for me. Okay. And then this one is really cool because it,
Hey, Michael, would normal like cotton fabric work?
yes, as long as it's opaque.
Okay.
As long as you can get it. There we go. That's what I want. Good, very good. All right, so now my background is entirely green, and we get to do some of the cool stuff later. So if you really want to take advantage of the online streaming world and OBS, this is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself, is to have a green screen like this. For those of you who are not familiar, OBS is a free software It is the open broadcasting software. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. This is open source, which means that it is free. But because it's free, it also means that anyone has access to the source code. And that means we get quite a few updates. If you are utilizing a Windows computer in particular, and even more specifically, a Windows computer with a NVIDIA graphics card, NVIDIA has decided that because so many people use OBS, especially people who buy NVIDIA graphics cards, that their drivers are starting to specify for OBS proper. So if you have one of these NVIDIA computers, your OBS experience is even better because not only are the drivers for the graphics cards being built for OBS, but a lot of the work in OBS is being built for these graphics cards. If you don't have a computer like that, don't worry. You're still going to get a great experience. So this works on Mac, works on Windows, works on Linux. And if you don't worry about Zoom, if we just completely get rid of Zoom as the middleman, then really the sky's the limit. OBS as a program, yes, I will do that. Thanks, Jamie. Just want to make sure that everybody is properly muted. Thanks. As long as you have a stable internet connection, OBS can stream out to just about any platform that you might want to use. So if you prefer to use YouTube or Vimeo or Facebook Live or Twitch or any of these, you can utilize OBS to go directly to those sites. Jamie asked, do you want to put on your preview suite for streaming your lessons? You can. And there's one big reason why using OBS in addition to Preview Suite is so useful. And I'll show you why. I'll show you why as I now have to disconnect some monitors and start up my Preview Suite. Because OBS is a standalone software, when you run your RenderBox preview or your pre-flight window through OBS, it gets rid of a lot of the stuttering issues that we have in Zoom. So you can run it at that full resolution and still be able to have a very, very smooth movement of all of the graphics. So ATM4 is loading, which I won't need, so I'm going to turn that off.
Mike, can you just repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. So about OBS as
the stuttering.
Working with, yeah. So as we've all seen this week, when you run Preview Suite through a shared window in Zoom, we get that stuttering. It doesn't seem to be as smooth as it might be on your computer itself. And the only way to get it smoother is to decrease the resolution, to optimize. So for example, when Dan was presenting on his ATM4 stuff, you either had the choice of nice and smooth animations that you could figure out, but then not be able to see the details of what he's putting into a queue, for example. OBS tends to get rid of that problem completely because it's doing all of the processing for you. So to give you a sense of how that looks, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to put all of you on a different screen and share my OBS screen. And so this is, let's see, share screen. We'll go OBS. And you should be able to see an OBS window in front of me. This is sort of the basic template. If you download OBS, it's a completely new profile with no scenes. There's no sources. Everything now is free for us to use. And as Mary McDonald and I found out this week, when you're using OBS, especially now as quickly as they're updating it, you want to make sure that all of your computer is as updated as possible. So that means not just your video drivers, but things like your Windows. I think Mary had an older version of Windows. Then when we upgraded it to the latest version, it fixed a major issue in OBS in picking up a window so that you could actually have the preview show. Kathy, right now I am using 25.0.8, which is the latest Windows version online. And so as long as if you're on Windows, you're in the 25s, you're good to go. And of course, if you want to check that, help, check for updates. And that's usually the most surefire way of that working. Yeah, the Windows and the Mac versions are quite different. So what I would do in this situation is in OBS. This will be sort of the review for everybody. In OBS, we utilize sources. It is all of the things that are in your computer or that are being all the things that your computer is ingesting, webcams and things of that sort, that you can then export and output through OBS. So that means if I wanted to add my RenderBox preview window as a source, I need to figure out how I want to interact with that. Usually what that means is that under the sources menu, I'll click on my plus. I'll click on something like window capture because my RenderBox preview is a window. And in this case, because we want to have, this is the Steve and Dave way of creating an ATM4 show versus maybe like the Scott and Brad way. I like to make sure that everything is as clear as possible as to what it does. So instead of having just window capture, I'm going to want to write out RenderBox preview. And that means that if I want to add this source somewhere else, instead of having to create a new one, I can just add the existing RenderBox preview and not do any other work. I know that everything is set up correctly. So I'll click OK. And then it'll give me a list of windows here. Usually what it's looking for is an executable file, and that's going to be RenderBox preview Starry Night exe. So if I click on that, I now see my RenderBox big and bright in the middle of my OBS screen, and that is great. Sometimes if the drivers don't match up, you end up with a white square, and then you get frustrated, and you end up like Mary and I were about 2 weeks ago. Now that we fixed that, all is better.
Hey, Mike, I'm sorry, can I ask a really silly question?
You may certainly.
Okay, so you don't need to have multiple screens like set up around you. You can just set it to one window, and like that window could even just be minimized, or do you have to have that window open?
As long as the system that you're wanting, whatever program you want to use, is open, I don't believe you have to have it maximized. I've had it before where like I was doing this with Stellarium. Stellarium was minimized, but still showed up because OBS could read the window itself. Okay. So it's good to have multiple monitors when you're doing this. But, you know, if you have two, if you have your main monitor and an external one, you should be fine. I mean, if you have 8 of them, all the better. But there are ways for us to work around that. As long as you've got the ability to maybe just dedicate a monitor to the stuff that you want to show, everything else kind of falls into place. So here I have my RenderBox preview. We're going to keep everything except for capture cursor. This is one of the most effective ways of really upping the production value of what you're streaming, especially if you don't use something like Preview Suite, where you have an additional window to work from. If this was Stellarium, for example, your cursor is right there on the screen all the time. But if you don't capture the cursor, it just looks like the screen is moving automatically. Like it looks really professional because you don't have this little mouse cursor sitting in the middle of the screen. So usually I turn off that checkbox just to make things look nice. Click OK. And now what I see in my RenderBox preview is what I'm seeing in front of me here in OBS. So I'll increase the size of that window. I want to make it the same height as the screen. And then I have that black area, that blank area on the side. And just to show you, I'm going to add my webcam. Your webcam is usually one of the most important sources for you. Yes, Mary.
I didn't think you would see my hand right away. Okay, so how is this the canvas size established that you're starting with, and what should it be?
Excellent question. So Mary's question is about the canvas, what you're working on. In this case, the black rectangle that you see on the screen. All of that is found in the settings menu. This is something, that maybe it's worth going over. There are a lot of settings in OBS. The vast majority of them you can keep as the default. They work really well the way things are set up, except if you know precisely the sort of output that you're looking for in your systems. So if you go to the video area, so that's going to be the fifth one down, I currently have a video output, which is fine. If my video output was turned off, I would be able to access all of this information here. But the two most important numbers are your base resolution and your output resolution. Usually your base resolution should be 1080p, 1920 by 1080, because that's what the majority of monitors use today. And most laptops have at least a 1080 screen nowadays. And it means that unless you know that you're going to be working with very high resolution images, or you have the powerhouse of a computer to run a 4K stream, the most you're ever going to want to output is 1920 by 1080. Your output resolution is going to depend on where you're sending the stream. So if you're using this as a camera in OBS, which is what we'll show in a second, and then trying to put this into Zoom, Zoom only outputs at 1280 by 720. So if you were to change that resolution to 720, now you've saved a lot of processing power and bandwidth because you're not sending any extraneous information. If this is going to YouTube or to Facebook, which can both handle 1080 resolution, you want that output to be the same. So inside of the software, OBS is able to take your canvas and shrink it to a different output. Most of the time, that's not terribly necessary. If you are on a wired internet, or you're on something like you have sort of like a gigabit internet at home, keeping these both at 1080 is totally fine, because the difference between 720 and 1080 in the amount of bandwidth you use is very, very small compared to trying to output this at 4K resolution. So all in all, if you know that you have issues with bandwidth, or you're going to have a lot of people on a live stream, you can drop that down to 720. But for the most part, if you keep it there at 1080, you're going to be good in 99% of the situations. Leslie, I saw your hand.
Okay, so what if you're going to put this to Zoom, but eventually you're going to record it to YouTube? Can you keep it at the 1080, or do you have to do the 1280 by 720?
You can keep it at 1080, and Zoom will do the down resing, as the easiest way to say it. The down resing to the lower resolution, Zoom will do that. Okay. And it doesn't take a lot of work on Zoom's part. It's simply, if you started at 720 and it goes to Zoom at 720, then you have the cleanest connection. But again, if you're working with modern broadband, you should be okay with 1080 and then forgetting about it forever. Because once you have that set, you're in good shape. The only other value that you'd want to keep in mind is your frames per second. primarily because at 60 frames a second, you're sending twice the amount of information, when most places 30 frames per second is just as good. Unless you're working with a very, very, very particular group of people, gamers, I guess, would be the ones. Setting it to 60 is usually kind of overkill. I've got it set at 60 because I haven't changed it to 30 yet. Usually 30 will be more than enough for anything that you'd want to do. So don't worry too much about that number. If it's at 30, keep it at 30. And if it's at 60, go ahead and lower it to 30, and you'll know the situations. You'll be told the situations where that needs to be higher. Linda, go ahead.
Will any of the other platforms like Zoom automatically do the down res?
Yes. So
Okay.
you'll see the same thing with WebEx, with GoToMeeting. Even Skype will do so, but Skype is one of those programs where I wouldn't recommend going OBS into Skype for various reasons. Skype is not designed for that. Skype into OBS is an entirely different story, and that is probably an hour's worth of teaching in and of itself. There's a reason why, if you've been on Skype, sometimes it's like you can't do 100 people on Skype really well most of the time. But if you watch newscasts, a lot of the time when they're interviewing somebody one-on-one from their home, they're utilizing Skype or WebEx because of some of the underlying software code that usually they have to pay a premium to get access to, that allows them to input it into their systems a little more straightforwardly than you would in OBS or another free program. So those are our use cases that are few and far between. But yeah, if this is Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting or Google Hangouts, it's going to do that resolution for you. So while I've got
Can I ask just one more follow-up on that? I'm so sorry.
Of course.
So we've got it set to 1920 by 1080, and that's also like the standard size of like a monitor, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if I want the nice render box, oh, looks like I'm gonna have to turn off video again. Anyway, if I want the nice render box to like fill this, do I literally just stretch it so that it fills up my other monitor?
Correct, which is what I just did now.
Okay.
It is going to keep the window the exact same size, because now I've stretched it to fill one monitor. It's now stretched to fill the canvas. So if I don't want that, I can shrink it. In this case, one of the good things, let me unlock that, is that if you do have it at the full resolution on the monitor and you shrink it on the other one, you aren't losing any resolution. Like, it's still going to be as sharp as possible, except that I want a little bit of space so that I can show you where I'll add a webcam. And the only reason this is going to work for me is because I have two webcams on the computer right now. That's a video capture device. So video capture, I'm going to call this one laptop. And then it's going to look on my computer and try to figure out what sort of a video outputs I have available. It's going to see an HD webcam. That's the one I want. Hey, there I am. And then there's all sorts of configurations. What I like to do when you're dealing with your webcams is to customize your resolution. And that way you can ensure that you're always using the highest resolution and the highest frames per second. That's where it's important. So now I know I'm getting the sharpest webcam and the sharpest resolution. So I'll put that in the corner. Yes.
All right. So based on what you just said, I'm just checking to make sure I understood.
Of course.
You can only, like, so if I'm doing this on the work laptop where Preview Suite is, and I only got one screen, right? I cannot put the little picture of myself in using the webcam if I've already I'm capturing the RenderBox. Is that what you said?
No, these are two separate things. So the RenderBox is one input.
Okay.
Your webcam is another input. They are
Oh,
totally
you said you could only do that because you have two cameras because you're already on Zoom with us.
because you can
Sorry.
see me. This, if I tried to access that camera in OBS, it'd freak out and not work. So because I have that second webcam, I
Okay.
can put myself in the corner. So this is great, but I wanted to show you how much smoother OBS can be. So I have a plugin. This is something else I'll put in the chat called Virtual Cam. And Virtual Cam is the way that almost all of sort of the streamers you've seen in the planetarium world, this is how they've gotten OBS into Zoom, because it takes everything you see on the screen and it converts it into a camera that Skype or Zoom or anything else can see. So I have that on. I see that there's an OBS dash camera. And if I go to Zoom, I can change my video so that instead of you seeing me like this, you can see me like this. So now I am outputting all of OBS through the camera. Now, of course, if you want to see me, I can stop the share and we pop back to where we were. If you go into my video window and you click on the three dots at the upper right, there's a spotlight video. Go ahead and click that. And that makes my video nice and big. So now you're seeing RenderBox and me all together. So any changes that I make in OBS, like shifting where my camera is, you see that live. So this is great if you simply want to drop this into Zoom and not think about it ever again. But now we need to show how much better RenderBox is. So I'm going to jump time by a pretty substantial amount. We're going to go at like 3,000 times the time flow, something where you would usually see a bit of jumpiness. But here, when I play it, oh, I'm not live. That's why. I'm like, why is nothing working? I'm not connected to my RenderBox. So now that I'm connected to my RenderBox, you should see a much smoother animations than what you would usually get in Zoom. So this is, instead of you getting maybe 10 or 12 frames a second, you can get very, very close to 30 or 40. And if you're giving a show, this is probably good enough for it to work and look okay. So if I was sharing this directly, it would be a lot more stuttery. So anything that I do in pre-flight, anything that I do on RenderBox, because now I'm going to move my RenderBox window. And I'm doing that from my RenderBox window, except none of you see a cursor. We've hidden the cursor, and now I don't have to worry about you seeing me manipulating stuff because it's supposed to look slightly more professional. It works great if you go to another planet. So if I were to just go to Mars and I do all of my fun animations, I get closer to the planet, you can see that now it's a lot smoother. This would make flights around your planets a lot more enjoyable than maybe what we've seen before with just sharing an OBS, sharing a preview suite screen. But where things get really powerful for OBS, and this is not anything that has to do with Zoom, has nothing to do with the creation itself, is whether or not you want to be head in the corner or you want to be something much, much cooler. So I'm going to move my camera down so that you really don't see the edges of the screen. What is over here? Oh, that's the microphone stand. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is get rid of my RenderBox preview by hiding it. Simply what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen so you can see it. Boom. I'm going to hide my RenderBox preview, and I'm going to make my webcam as big as possible. so that it fills up the screen. We've got mostly the green behind me. And I want to utilize that green for good. That is where we use our chroma key. And in OBS, the ability to get a virtual background is a layer effect. So when you think of your sources, when they're in this little box, they act just like the layers do in something like Photoshop. So if the RenderBox preview is on top of laptop, it's covering me up completely. And so, oh, I can't see myself. I'm going to have to put myself on top, just like that. And this camera clearly has a green screen. So I want to right click and go to filters, because it's the one thing that I've got here that really makes any sense. I could copy, I can rename, I can colorize this so it looks the way that I want it to. But a filter allows me to either change aspects of audio and video, which we're not going to do, or add an effect. So this effect is chroma key, and it's going to be looking for, we'll call it, yeah, it's chroma key is fine. You'll notice that what was green is now black. And this is where things get fun. You can, in this setting, make sure that, and let me get the chat. Oh, Laura, we're going to get really in depth with the course notes on this one. This is the one where I had to do course notes after the fact because of what we would cover. You can have a color type that's not green. That's blue. It's not good. Never good. Magenta, which picks a lot. My lips are now, that's fun. But instead we're going to do green. And so I've been dropped out pretty well. If things don't look exactly right, you have all of these sliders that you can change. But for the most part, OBS does a very good job of picking out what is supposed to be chroma keyed. So you hit close. And what you'll notice is that behind me, you can start to see Mars. So if I increase the size of the object behind me, and maybe, I'm going to keep it here in the middle, and maybe move my webcam somewhere else. Like I want to shrink down my webcam. Oh. So now I'm down here in the corner. And other than the two little corners there that are still bright, I am now floating in space in front of Mars. So that if I gave my pre-flight show to where, let's see, I'm going to go to pre-flight. Let's head down to the surface. I can then go down to the surface, and you're going to see me just there being able to talk about this. If I had a big enough space where I could stand up and you could still see all of me on the webcam, you could do your sort of meteorologist talks and really change for the students or for your audiences, really the sort of immersiveness to where you're on the screen, but you are not the main event. They can see you, you can interact with what's around you. This is great if you build an ATM4 show and you can essentially give a live stand-up show with it behind you and they can see you. So you're interacting with the audience. You're pointing to, oh, that's Olympus Mons. That's crazy. It's not Olympus Mons. I can't see it. But you can really give them a unique perspective. Great. Okay. Excellent. And then I know that there are some hands up. So Kelly, we'll take a quick pause. Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry to make you jump back. Would you please, when you did what you did, you said you had this plugin that allows you to take your OBS and make it your Zoom window.
Correct.
Could you walk through that again, and where do we get that plugin from?
Absolutely. This one will be very, very straightforward for us. So I'm trying to remember what I'm sharing right now. I'm sharing my OBS window. So we're not, and there I am. You can still see me. So the plugin is called Virtual Cam. I'm actually going to bring that up here on the Open Broadcaster website. Make sure that I can get through to forum, search, virtual. Forum resources. That's the one. Plugins Studio. All right. So let me just put that in OBS virtual cam. Okay. Excellent. All right. So I'm going to share. It's pretty funky looking, actually. Share my window here for the web browser. So the main page, obsproject.com, is where you get OBS Studio itself. So you download the windows, it knows what you want to do. This is a fantastic site. If you go to the blog up in the upper right corner, it is there, everything you'd ever want to know about OBS. And here's where you can find all of our quick start guides and things. Their help is absolutely fantastic. The wiki guides are where you want to go if you really want to start delving deep into what OBS is capable of doing. It goes through all the sources, all the filters. This is going to be linked in with the course notes. There's a lot more here than we can go over in an hour, but this gives you 85 to 90% of everything you could possibly need to run OBS well. The other 10% comes from two places. YouTube, where we have a lot of people who have made videos about OBS, and futzing around. This is this is a fairly forgiving software. So if you just want to start pushing buttons and see what they do, pretty good chances that you're going to get immediate feedback. And that's always a positive. To add the virtual cam, it is a plugin that is posted on the forum for OBS. And it is simply a file, an executable file that you download, that you'll read this. The version of plugin is currently deprecated. If you're using version 25, which I currently am, you would then click on the link below. And again, this is to make sure that you know, everybody's given the right one. You're on the page. It tells you how to use it, how to preview everything the way we're doing right now. It will walk you through how to install. And all you have to do is download that and run the file. That's it. There's no dropping into a folder. There's no having to go back into OBS and click 30 things to get it to match up. Once you've run this file, OBS, and then I'll share back the OBS window. We'll then have a new tool in the tools menu called Virtual Cam. And it will only work, this is the important part, if you click on either start, or if you don't want to click start every single time that you're running OBS, you click auto start, and then it works for you. And it says, is this the camera you want? It is. And you leave everything else the same. You close it. And then when you go into Zoom, it becomes a new accessible webcam. So you might have the webcam that's on your laptop, and then you'll see this OBS camera next to it. And if OBS is open, whatever you see on your canvas is what gets output into Zoom.
So that's the trick. I think I was trying to figure out how to get there. You have to go in, when you go into Zoom, you tell it, hey, forget my webcam, use OBS virtual cam as your camera, Zoom, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So
okay.
So yeah, you can see how a system like this with a little bit of foresight becomes incredibly powerful. But the key to this is that although there's a fair amount of time that you're probably going to want to take to building these sorts of shows and scenes, the great thing is that once you've created them, to me, this is a scene where I am looking at RenderBox with a little webcam there at the bottom. I have a scene that I can now rename as Mike in Space. So no matter what's behind me, I've got Mike in Space. But if I then want to just have something that's a webcam in front of you, I can simply make a new scene, and I'll share OBS. You can see now that I've got a name of the scene, scene 2. This will just be webcam head. It's blank, and that's fine because all I need to do is add that webcam. I know that I have an existing one called laptop. I'll click OK, and I'll make it nice and big. And now I can switch between the two simply by clicking on the scene.
So Mike, a scene is like holding on to the canvas you've built.
Correct. Think of scenes as your favorites. And you've made a favorite where all of these things are kind of lined up the way you want. You take that snapshot, and that's your scene. Then you can create a new scene that may have much of the same assets, much of the same resources, but in a different way. And so here I am. So this is so that's the way that you can sort of utilize OBS to give you new and exciting ways of kind of interacting with the audience. Now you're not just a head in the corner, you're not just up there in the Zoom, and this can be output to just about anything that you'd want to have it output to. So this goes to Facebook, this goes to YouTube, and so on. Can we show how to upload a stream to YouTube? Yes, we can certainly do that. That is, let's see, probably the most straightforward way of showing this is for me to be in space and to show you. Let's see, I'm going to get rid of that. In the settings for OBS, where they're going to be in your settings area, so I don't need that. Down in the right corner, you'll see settings. So if you click on that and go to stream, you're faced with a pretty daunting drop-down box, especially if you click show all. It's all of these online systems that you can use to stream your information out. What we're going to do is focus, like Jamie asked, on YouTube, which is one of the simpler ones. That's YouTube here, YouTube and YouTube Gaming. And it asks you for a server. This is a primary server. I think people are trying to yell at me. Okay, so there's a bunch of people who don't know what's going on because they don't know what's going on. My coworkers, everybody. And then you're asked for a stream key, and this is where things get a little complicated, but we'll walk through this. So we're going to do this slowly.
Hold on, can I ask a first question?
Yes.
Okay, so it says your server's primary YouTube server, but that's not your YouTube channel. But wouldn't you want to upload it to your personal channel? You
would. And that's what the stream key is going to allow you to do. There are some systems, Zoom is one of them, where it's really nice that you pay money because then they pay YouTube money to access parts of their code. So that if you stream to YouTube from Zoom, it's really just choose your account and you click a couple of things and it works. There's no keys that you have to put in or anything like that. Instead, what you have is a stream key that you need to get from YouTube. So to do that, we're going to go back to the internet. So let me go ahead and share the internet once again. We're going to travel all the way to youtube.com. And as long as you have the input, basically all of your login information, this will be fairly straightforward. So right now I am Spitz Virtual Institute channel something. We don't want that because we are going to mess up somebody's live stream. So I'm going to switch accounts. Let's go to Dome Dialogues. That's one I know is going to work. So this is one of the YouTube channels that I run. And if you go to your channel or your library, in this case, if you go up to the YouTube Studio. So maybe you'll click in that right corner. You see a YouTube Studio link. This is where you're going to get the information that's necessary for you to upload into, get your stream from OBS and upload that to YouTube. So we'll do videos. That should be the button. Anything that's live, and I'm seeing the chat. Oh, Kathy, I'll look into that one about authentication. What you'll see here. They're freaking out because nobody has any idea what's going on with Dan Zielinski. It's okay. We're all good. So these are all uploaded videos. These were all done. Dan, are you in the room?
I am.
Yeah, like at noon, they're going to want you to go to the room, but I guess nobody knows that you're doing that.
We can just talk on the other chat. I'm on that.
I know. These are the things that now I have to save while we're working on that.
I'll figure it out.
So when you're in the videos, you click on create in that upper right corner where you see the little plus sign. You can either upload a video, which is not what we're not going to do, or you can go live. And if you go live, you are faced with a multitude of information. We don't want Stream Now Classic. Oh, it's going to make me go to the classic page. Fine, whatever. Follow with it. It's telling you to do all of these things. Once this loads, and this is the somewhat complicated part. Under encoder setups, this is about 2/3 of the way down. There's a server. What you're looking at here, this live server, is the one that OBS was referring to. This is the primary server. But it's this thing right here, the stream key, that's the most important. If you reveal it, there are a lot of letters. And it is important because that stream key in some cases never changes. If it doesn't change and someone gets your stream key, they can stream to your channel without your knowledge. Except that almost never happens because really, who's going to be trying to stream from this like podunk YouTube channel? So
what do you mean in some cases it never changes?
Because there are it's a good clarification. Some sites like YouTube default to a single stream key, while sites like Facebook often generate new stream keys for every video you make. And so depending on where you are outputting to, you have to be aware that that all of this is the problem. So if you have this one stream key and you always use it, it will always go to that YouTube page. Facebook, on the other hand, will tell you, no, you've already used that key. Here's this new key that you need to input so that you can stream to Facebook Live.
Okay, I have no interest in Facebook whatsoever, but my YouTube channel will always be the same stream key?
Correct. As long as you go to your studio and you see that encoder setup with that persistent stream key, which is what you should see, then anytime that's input into OBS, then you can stream directly from OBS without having to do all of this. It's going to take care of a lot of the overhead of streaming for you because you've done all of this work ahead of time. So we're going to reveal and copy that stream key. So I take that stream key, I'm going to copy it 35,000 times so that I know, and I'm going to move to OBS. So stop share one more time, open up my OBS window. There's me in the corner again. I place the stream key, pasted that, and I click apply, and things are looking good. Okay, so now if I hit okay, if I were to start streaming right now, click that button, if everything worked, what we should see are changes here at the bottom of my screen. I'm going to see some updates that tell me whether or not I am live on this channel. So here we're gonna start it. Start streaming. Am I sure? Yes. You can turn this off. Don't ever turn it off. You want to make sure that you're starting the stream. So I click yes. I'm live. Oh, great sign. I have a green square in the corner. That means that it has made a connection with the YouTube server and is now sending frames over. You'll notice things like your frames per second should be right about what you set it. Mine were set at 60, and so it stays there. It's going to give you your CPU usage. That is very important because most of the power for streaming is coming from your processor. The processor is converting and encoding and sending it all out. So the newer your processor, the faster your processor, the better streaming tends to be. If you have a very, very new graphics card from NVIDIA, they have worked with OBS so that most of that encoding is now done on the graphics card, which means that your computer runs even faster. We can see we've been online now for about 1 minute. We've dropped 0 frames. That means we have excellent connectivity. And if I bring us back to the page, we should see a live video on YouTube. So let's try it out. And since I can already see it and it's working, I'm really excited. We're live. You can see that one person is watching. That one person, of course, is me. But there is usually about a 10 to 12 second lag. But you can see that my mouth is moving on that screen with the OBS output that we were having before. We can tell that there's one person. Everything else is good. I can change the basic info for us right there. And Kathy has a great suggestion. You have a phone or a tablet or even just a web page open nearby so that you can confirm that you are in fact online. So as long as my stream health is good, your viewers are happy. Viewers may be experiencing minor issues. I have no idea which minor issues they're talking about. It's probably because there's only one viewer. We're very good. You can see now there is an active stream. Resolution is nice, and the video output is working properly. And now I am now on the internet, so I can just keep talking, and this would keep showing. Jamie asks, can you film in OBS and then upload to YouTube? You most certainly can. A lot of people will record first in OBS so that they can pause and edit and do all those sorts of things, and then upload to YouTube, and they wouldn't know any different. If you feel more comfortable with that, it's the way to go, especially if you are not working with a live audience. So if you're not working with a live audience, going ahead and recording it ahead of time is probably preferred at that. All right, so let's, I'm gonna go back to OBS and just stop my stream. And then if I were to go back to the website, everything's good, boom, gone. So that is, that's how we would use OBS to get to, we'd use OBS to output to something like to YouTube. Now, of course, you can hear me, but you cannot see me because I am still on that OBS camera. And since my OBS window is now closed, I need to change my camera into something you can see. There we go. We're back. Leslie, I think your hand has been up for far too long. I do apologize for missing that, but go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's a quick question. When you put up the green screen and then you were doing all your filters to do the green screen, does that chroma key only show up if you have a green screen behind?
If the filter is set to green, it can change to blue or magenta if you have a blue screen or a magenta screen. And then if technically you could use any color with the sliders, like you could dial in the color of your shirt or the color of your wall. It's just that the green screen gives you the most consistent of the most consistent of the backgrounds.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So with that, I know we're a little bit over. We're just about 2 or 3 minutes over, and Dan has left the room, so that's good. He's actually going to his class. Any particular questions, like more specific stuff that we want to look at? Mary, go ahead.
Hello. Okay. So what I've been doing is I have been doing a Zoom, and I stream from Zoom onto YouTube, and I am so you can join. So you can join on Zoom or watch it on YouTube. Should I be using OBS? Would it be better to use OBS and then output from OBS to both Zoom and YouTube because of the performance that you mentioned?
That is an excellent question. Yes, because since Zoom is working on its own, it's not looking at OBS as a streaming source, but looking at it as a camera. That is the most effective way of streaming to the two places at once. So you'd only have to make changes in OBS, and they would reflect both in Zoom and in YouTube simultaneously. So if that helps to sort of streamline the tech process, that might be a good way to go, because you get the higher resolution on YouTube and you get the interaction on Zoom. So really you get the best of both worlds if you decided to do something like that.
Okay. So the primary benefit would be better resolution on YouTube.
Correct. Because then you would be able to output full HD onto YouTube. And as we're very much aware from this week, a little extra resolution on some of the RenderBox previews makes a world of difference, especially if you don't want to make the stars the size of beach balls. All right, Megan, go ahead.
I was getting texts from my staff, so now I'm trying to remember what my question was. Oh, it was easy. I downloaded the virtual cam while you were talking, and then I forgot how to actually find it.
Go to tools in the upper menu bar, and you should see virtual cam as one of the new tools in there in OBS.
Got it.
And then just click on auto start and you are good to go.
I don't see it yet. Maybe I got to reboot because I don't know.
Also possible.
Okay, but at least I know it's in tools.
Yeah, great. All right, any other questions?
Oh, Michael, are you leading this TLE room that's starting soon?
I will be going to be on the basics in about a minute. Yeah. So that's where I'm jumping now, unless there are more questions.
I just want to say, Mike, this was amazing, and I want to try all of this, but I couldn't play along or take notes fast enough. So would you please just write this out and we will all
basically by the end of the weekend, I will have the full notes up.
Thanks.
And then of course,
none of us could write fast enough.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that Mary has taken advantage of this over the past couple of weeks, months. You're always free to email me with questions. I'll be happy to help. And Mary and I have fixed some fairly large OBS issues. And the better we can make things look for you guys, I'm happy to help. So
I will say this is my third time going through this with Mike, and it's just starting to really make sense the third time through.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So any way we look at it, I'm enjoying it. All right, so now I need to